In fourth grade, I had the lead role in the school play. I was so excited and practiced for weeks. On the night of the performance, my parents showed up an hour late, missing my big scene. They said Amy had a tummy ache and they were comforting her. I later found out she was fine, they had just lost track of time while playing with her. When it came to academics, nothing I did ever seemed good enough. In middle school, I consistently got straight A's, joined the math club, and even won a regional science fair. My parents barely acknowledged these achievements, but when Amy got a B+ on a single test in her weakest subject, they threw her a celebratory dinner and bought her a new phone as motivation to keep improving. High school was particularly tough. I threw myself into every activity I could, hoping to win their approval. I was captain of the debate team, editor of the school newspaper, and maintained a 4.0 GPA. Meanwhile, Amy coasted through school, barely maintaining a C average and spending most of her time partying with friends. During my junior year, I was selected as one of 2 students from our school to attend a prestigious summer program at Harvard. It was a huge honor, and I was thrilled. When I shared the news at dinner, my dad grunted and changed the subject to Amy's upcoming dance recital. My mom at least said, "That's nice," but quickly moved on. The night of Amy's recital, which fell on the same day I was leaving for Harvard, my parents couldn't drive me to the airport because they didn't want to miss Amy's performance. I had to ask a friend's parents for a ride. The college application process was another painful experience. I spent months perfecting my essays, participating in extracurriculars, and studying for the SATs. I was accepted into several top-tier universities and received a substantial scholarship to my dream school. When I announced this at dinner, my parents' response was lukewarm at best. My dad said, "That's good, but don't let it go to your head. College isn't everything." My mom added, "Just don't forget about us when you're off becoming a big shot." In contrast, when Amy barely graduated high school and decided not to go to college, my parents were completely supportive. They praised her for knowing herself and not conforming to societal pressures. They even bought her a car as a graduation present, something they never did for me. This constant favoritism took a heavy toll on me emotionally. I struggled with depression and anxiety throughout my teens and early 20s. I started seeing a therapist in college, which helped me understand that my parents' behavior wasn't my fault. It took years of work to build my self-esteem and learn to validate myself instead of seeking approval from my parents. Despite the lack of support from my immediate family, I managed to build a good life for myself. I graduated college with honors, secured a good job in finance, and even bought my own house by 27. I'm proud of what I've achieved, even if my parents aren't. Now here's where the current drama starts. My grandfather on my dad's side passed away recently. He was a successful businessman who built a fortune from scratch, and he left behind a significant estate. In his will, he divided his assets equally among his children, my dad and his siblings, and grandchildren, me, Amy, and our cousins. My share of the inheritance was substantial, about $500,000. It would have allowed me to pay off my student loans, invest in my future, and maybe even start my own business someday. I was grateful for this unexpected windfall and the opportunities it could provide. However, when the will was read, my parents were visibly upset. They pulled me aside afterward and told me they thought it was unfair that I got an equal share. They said Amy needed the money more because she was struggling. She works part-time at a coffee shop and lives in our parents' basement. I was shocked but tried to stay calm. I explained that this was Grandpa's decision and it wasn't up to them to change it. They insisted that I should do the right thing and give my share to Amy. When I refused, they got angry and started guilt-tripping me, saying I was selfish and ungrateful. My dad brought up every instance he could think of where they had supported me, including paying for my braces, which were medically necessary, buying me school supplies, the bare minimum, and letting me live at home during college, even though I worked part-time to contribute to expenses. He conveniently forgot about the car they bought Amy, the countless shopping sprees, and the fact that they're still supporting her at 25. The situation escalated quickly. My dad, as the executor of the will, decided to take matters into his own hands. He announced that he was going to reinterpret Grandpa's wishes and give my entire share to Amy on top of her own inheritance. He claimed this is what Grandpa would have wanted if he had known our individual circumstances. I was devastated. Not only was this clearly illegal, but it was also a painful reminder of how little my parents valued me. I tried to reason with them, pointing out that Grandpa had always treated all his grandchildren equally and that he was well aware of our situations. My mom then accused me of speaking ill of the dead by suggesting Grandpa would have wanted anything different from what my dad was proposing. I brought up specific memories of Grandpa encouraging my academic and career pursuits, but my parents dismissed these as misunderstandings. They claimed Grandpa had privately expressed concern about Amy's future and had wanted to ensure she was taken care of. When I asked why he hadn't just written the will that way, they didn't have an answer. Amy, for her part, seemed uncomfortable with the situation but didn't speak up against our parents. When I tried to talk to her privately, she just shrugged and said, "Mom and Dad know best." It was clear she wasn't going to be any help. Feeling hurt and betrayed, I reached out to my paternal grandmother, Grandpa's widow, for advice. She was furious when she heard what was happening. She told me that this was absolutely not what Grandpa had intended and that my parents had no right to change the will. Grandma shared some information that shed new light on the situation. Apparently, my parents had approached Grandpa a few years ago asking him to leave everything to Amy in his will. Grandpa had firmly refused, stating that he believed in treating all his grandchildren equally. He had even added a clause to his will stating that anyone who contested the equal distribution would forfeit their share. Armed with this information, I confronted my parents. They were shocked that Grandma had told me about their previous attempt to influence the will. My dad tried to justify it by saying they were just looking out for Amy's future, but I could see the guilt on their faces. Grandma took action immediately. She contacted her lawyer and the other executors of the will. She also reached out to my dad's siblings, who were equally outraged by what my dad was trying to do. Together, they put a stop to my dad's plan and ensured that the will would be executed as written. My parents were forced to back down, but they were furious with me. They accused me of turning the family against them and said I should have handled this in-house instead of involving others. Now you can check for a part 2 by pressing share and more. My mom cried about how I had betrayed them and broken the family apart. My dad threatened to cut me out of their will entirely, to which I responded that I had never expected anything from them anyway. They are now threatening to cut me off completely if I accept their money. My dad even went so far as to say that if I take the inheritance, I'm no longer welcome in their home. My mom, in a particularly low blow, said that my acceptance of the money shows that I never really loved them and was just waiting to cash in on their deaths. The extended family is divided on the issue. Some of my cousins are supportive, recognizing the long-standing favoritism and praising me for standing up for myself. Others think I should have just given in to keep the peace, saying that family harmony is more important than money. My dad's siblings are firmly on my side, but this has caused tension between them and my parents. Amy is caught in the middle of all this. She told me privately that she didn't ask for this and feels guilty, but she's not willing to stand up to our parents. I don't blame her entirely. She's been conditioned her whole life to rely on them and seek but things are still complicated with my parents. My mom is making sincere efforts to repair our relationship. She's been attending therapy regularly and has even started to acknowledge some of the harm caused by her favoritism. We've had a few one-on-one lunches where we've had some honest, though difficult, conversations about our past and how we can move forward. While it's not perfect, it's progress. My dad, however, remains resistant to change. He still insists he did nothing wrong and that Amy and I are being ungrateful. He's missed several family events because he refuses to be in the same room as me. It's painful, but I'm learning to accept that I can't control his reactions or force him to see things differently. Grandma has become a rock for both Amy and me. She shared more stories about Grandpa and how proud he would be of us for standing up for ourselves. She's also been a great mediator in family conflicts, always advocating for fairness and understanding. This whole experience has taught me a lot about the true meaning of family. I've realized that sometimes the family you choose can be more supportive than the one you're born into. I've formed closer bonds with my aunts, uncles, and cousins who stood by me, and I've even developed a close-knit group of friends who have been incredibly supportive throughout this ordeal. I've also learned the importance of self-care and setting boundaries. I no longer feel guilty for prioritizing my own well-being and am getting better at saying no to situations that are harmful to my mental health. I've started exploring new hobbies and interests that I had always put off because I was so focused on trying to win my parents' approval. To those in similar situations, I want to say, don't let anyone make you feel guilty for receiving what's rightfully yours. It's okay to stand up for yourself, even if it causes conflict. Family dynamics can be complicated, but you deserve to be treated with respect and fairness. Remember, it's never too late to start healing and building the life you deserve. Seek therapy if you need it, surround yourself with supportive people, and don't be afraid to set boundaries. Your worth isn't determined by how your family treats you, but by who you are as a person. Thank you again to everyone who offered advice and support. It meant more than you know during a really difficult time. While the journey hasn't been easy, I'm looking forward to the future with a sense of optimism and self-assurance I haven't felt in years. I'm excited to see where this new chapter of my life will lead and am committed to breaking the cycle of favoritism and creating healthier relationships in my own future family. One day, a few months after the inheritance drama, I received a call from Amy. She sounded upset and asked if we could meet for coffee. When we met, she looked stressed and tired. "What's wrong, Amy?" I asked. She took a deep breath and said, "I can't live like this anymore. Mom and Dad are constantly pressuring me, and I feel like I'm letting everyone down." I felt a mix of sympathy and frustration. "Amy, you don't have to live by their expectations. You can make your own decisions." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know, but it's hard. They make me feel guilty for everything. I don't even want the inheritance anymore. I just want to be free." This was a turning point for both of us. I encouraged Amy to seek therapy and find a job that she actually enjoyed. Slowly, she started to break away from our parents' control and began building her own life. Our parents, of course, didn't take this well. They accused me of turning Amy against them. My dad even stopped speaking to me entirely. But I knew it was the right thing to do. Amy needed to find her own path, just like I had. Over time, Amy and I grew closer. We supported each other through the tough times and celebrated our achievements together. Our bond became stronger than ever, and we found comfort in knowing we had each other's backs. Meanwhile, my mom continued to make efforts to mend our relationship. She apologized for the years of favoritism and admitted she had been wrong. While it didn't erase the past, it was a step towards healing. As for my dad, he remained stubborn. He refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing and continued to distance himself from me. It hurt, but I accepted that I couldn't change him. I focused on building a happy and fulfilling life for myself, surrounded by people who cared about me. Grandma remained a constant source of support and wisdom. She encouraged both Amy and me to follow our dreams and not let anyone hold us back. Her love and guidance meant the world to us. With my inheritance, I was able to pay off my student loans and invest in my future. I even started my own business, something I had always dreamed of. It was challenging, but incredibly rewarding. I was finally living life on my own terms. Amy, too, found her footing. She moved out of our parents' basement, got a full-time job she enjoyed, and started pursuing her passion for photography. She was happier and more independent than ever before. Through all the ups and downs, I learned an important lesson. Family is not just about blood. It's about the people who love and support you, no matter what. I found my true family in the friends and relatives who stood by me, and in the bond I shared with Amy. Looking back, I don't regret standing up for myself and fighting for what was right. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I'm proud of the person I've become, And I'm excited for the future. No matter what challenges come my way, I know I have the strength to overcome them. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support. Your words meant more than you know during a really difficult time. I'm looking forward to the future with optimism and confidence, ready to create a life filled with love, happiness, and fairness.